Hello, everyone. So we're going to have a bonus action for our taboo Let's Talk featured Rabbi Mindy. Hello, Rabbi Mindy.
Can you hear us, Rabbi?
Yes, yes, I
Oh,
can hear
okay. I
you.
was like, no, not difficulties.
Yes, Rabbi Mendy had a little difficulty earlier, so we decided to bring him on and him share some of his thoughts regarding faith and mental health and how his community is dealing with this pandemic and social distancing and not being able to deal and help his community in the way they normally do. So this is their all our new normals at this point. So Rabbi Mendy, would you like to share a few thoughts?
Well, the first thing we have to understand is all communities, all groups, I think, have suffered from the same common denominator. We were unable to speak to each other, access each other, see each other. The elderly population was cut off from their children and grandchildren, let's say. The young children were deprived of a childhood. The situation of COVID created such a horrible brew, the silent killer that you cannot see, the silent troublemaker, the pandemic, changed the world that we knew. Many times you had pregnant women who gave birth to healthy children in the hospital. The depression that kicked in more than usual because they could not see their husbands, their mothers, or other important people in their life. Many people who were struggling to be alive in a hospital, who were sick and ill, the mental encouragement, that spiritual encouragement, the joy of interacting with the loved one was missing. So it took its toll in a way which is much deeper than we can appreciate, unfortunately. A much more severe impact than people have ever seen before. I know that whenever you're dealing with a governmental agency, a bank, or any type of a company, we have difficulty getting through as it is pre-COVID. And with COVID, the stress level of being on the phone, hearing a voice, or getting a teleprompt computer system to work was very difficult. So what COVID taught us or teaches us that all of us have a common problem. This isn't a person that financially, emotionally, spiritually, economically, one of the least who aren't affected. And we have to learn from over here to have vitamin L, vitamin love. In order when the world does come back with God's help, we have to take the spiritual connections we have made and make that as a baseline. We have to learn to accept each other, to love each other, to appreciate each other, to collaborate with each other, and be there for one another. We have to view each other as one big family, all facing the same challenges of life. And that is the most important takeout from COVID, in my opinion.
Thank you so much for that.
Oh, I want to write a poem now talking about vitamin love. That was very, very like inspiring and stuff like that. And again, bonus edition poets talking a little bit here. Um, you know, thinking about all the things that affect the community, like you said, like spiritually, financially, our health, right? Health isn't just like physical, right? Health is all around, like health within our interactions and our relationships with others, health with our interactions and our relationship with ourselves, right? Which can overall affect, right, our mental health or affect what we deem as being like spiritual or having faith or different things like that. So you made a lot of great points. Wow, I'm gonna just go to the background and pull up the questions. I can't. This is so too much for me to handle.
But they're good questions that have to be answered. And these are the difficult conversations to make change. In order to have change, you have to flush through the reality and see the impact on reality. See the impact how it affected everybody's a common base. Some groups may be more impacted than others. But the bottom line are there's certain common challenges everybody faced. Is overcoming those challenges, learning from that experience, that's how you make this world a better place for all people. That is the answer, unfortunately. Unfortunately, in the sense, we have to want to face that reality. If we face that reality, have that frank talk, we could make positive change.
So, one of the questions that we went over earlier, and I think you were here for it, was what is the difference between spirituality and religion? I believe that you were here for that one, but
Yeah.
can you just just refresh us on what you believe are the differences?
What I believe spirituality is? Spirituality are the positive lessons of human interaction. The positive side, what religion teaches us, responsibility. Those are common denominators. And the common denominator is respect you like I want to be respected, to do for you like I want done for myself. Putting it between man and man and man and community, person and person and person and community. And the creator on top deems our good efforts as a positive. And that positive creates a positive force of energy. And with that type of spirituality in the world, we can defeat mental anguish. Part of it means to recognize mental anguish is a pain, not to be embarrassed, have a conversation about it. It's important for spiritual leaders to say, yes, all of us are suffering. The rabbi, the priest, the imam, the spiritual figure is suffering also. But it's how we overcome the challenges and how we work on it together in this circumstance that makes a difference.
All right. Our next question is, how is the topic of mental health viewed within religious circles?
Well, unfortunately, even pre-COVID, whether it was like in the realm of special education, I'll pick that for an example, how many parents were fearful to stigmatize the children as a learning issue. And many times children had a miserable educational experience because they were not getting the services or they were not in the environment where they needed to be to thrive as a student. There is a stigma, unfortunately, with mental health. People, unfortunately, like to condemn. People like to run away from it. From the same token, the last few years, I've seen organizations taking people that have mental health issues, mainstreaming them, working on their strength, and they've added a lot to society, but integrating the humanist in them. So unfortunately, there's a lot to be done, a lot of work that has to be done to advocate for mental health and integrating people who have issues and learning what positive sides come out of integrating and part of diversity is very, very important. From a religious standpoint, mental health is viewed to be important, whether it's a sin or a positive action. Our mental way of our view, how we look at things, our mental well-being defines it. So it's very important to focus on it, but try to focus on it from the lens as we have that challenge. Many times we feel we're better than the person with the challenge, but let us try to become that person, see how they view us. What are we doing to make them feel better from that perspective?
Wow. No, that is definitely compelling because I work with people with disabilities. So I work at YI, where we work with people in providing resources. And unfortunately, one of the commonalities that I've noticed while working with people with intellectual or developmental disabilities and as well as mental health and illness is that many people are in denial about it and have denied their children particular care because of the fact that they didn't believe that their children a had a disorder or had autism or had some type of some type of anxiety or disorders that can be very debilitating if not done right. So yeah, to have those circles, and in addition to religious circles that are pretty much not being open minded about this or about this situation, definitely makes the overall experience, the living experience, all the more, I guess, traumatic. If that makes sense.
Yes, because unfortunately, there are two issues to understand. Many times, people who have mental health issues are in denial. But the same thing with people, alcoholics, or people that have any issue, they're in denial. And how you respond to a person with the mental health issues is very crucial because somebody well-meaning may say the wrong thing that can trigger other problems. For example, agreeing with something that didn't happen, somebody has a dementia case, for example, agreeing it's terrible this happened, and the person has a lucid moment later on, oh, why did Mendy agree with me? This never happened. By telling the person, I'm sorry you feel a certain way, I'm sorry you feel that this happened, or you perceive this happened, when the person has a moment of being lucid again, then the person would feel he never agreed with me. She never agreed with me. She showed me compassion in my time of pain. So the most important thing is, even though us as spiritual leaders, we engage in issues of mental health, we have to be very careful to do two things: not to take on the role of a therapist or a physician that could cure, or a psychologist that could cure, if we do not have that special unique training. We have
Mm-hmm.
to learn how to be sensitive, how to identify the issue, have appropriate resources, which community groups we could refer the situation to, and we have to work to help the person. And we have to learn how to watch our language when we communicate in a way that should not harm the person needing the help. That's the key in all of this. I am very, very careful whenever I have the discussion not to hold myself out to expertise which I do not have. And one would be to become the therapist and the cure giver. You have to know your limitations, where to get help from, and how to proper communication with the person who has those challenges to help them get the relief that they need.
And I definitely agree. And the fact that you take that approach allows you to be ethical in how you approach people, as well as people who are in, let's just say, possible in crisis, regardless if it's mental, emotional, or circumstantial crisis. So for you to go as far as to that, it's applaudable because you have some people that would take on such a precarious, multifaceted role when they're not even equipped to do that. And it kind of goes along the lines of even ethics and being competent in a lot of these instances where it becomes a thin line of between helping and harming the person if gone wrong. Well, we can actually go into our next question. Have you had encounters with someone in a mental health crisis? And if so, how did you approach it?
For the mental health crisis, the first thing you should do is, if it's you get on the phone, seriously speaking, you should have the resources in your community that can be available for intervention. Your job basically is to keep the calm and the peace, to keep as relaxed as possible until the mental health professional should be there. And I firmly believe to this end, there are certain basic lessons that clergy should be taking, basic steps, how to diffuse the situation, how to calm the situation, to de-escalate the situation until the proper mental health professional can enter the picture. Do not take upon yourself a role where you're causing more harm than good in the process. We're not questioning the hearts and the intentions of the people trying to do good. That all of us have. We need to have the competency how to handle the situation at hand. So I think it's incumbent, just like it's important to know CPR or basic life steps, it's incumbent upon clergy to know basic mental health diffusing tactics, how to calm a situation until the appropriate professional can come there. Remember, the clergy many times are trusted by their flock more than an ordinary person because of the position of authority and respect that they carry. So accordingly, in order to earn that respect, we have to have the basic steps, how to handle the situation until the real professionals can come in to hopefully resolve it with a permanent, good resolution that's good for the person facing those challenges.
Well done. Because not too many people know how to approach anybody or just someone that's in a crisis. So for you to go literally step by step on how to should be a serving example as to how anybody should work with anyone that is having a crisis.
That's why this discussion tonight is so important. And maybe we should explore in an interfaith way, again, on the spiritual side, spiritual care, not counseling, spiritual care, what minimal competency our spiritual leaders must have, how to handle the situation. Because sometimes it's 2 o'clock in the morning, you cannot get the professional on the phone that you need. However, you don't want to bellow with flame and create a problem where there's not a problem or make something more out of it because we innocently do not know how to give the response and we're using our intelligence, and sometimes our intelligence may cause more harm than good at the given moment. So I personally believe everybody should be trained in basic steps how to handle the situation, like the CPR example, until help comes, as it comes on its way.
I definitely agree with you. Let's go on to the next question. Can spirituality be helpful with managing mental health?
Yes, yes. If we understand and recognize that individual has mental health issues, and we understand that these issues can be controlled, managed, and hopefully cured, but at least controlled and managed in a loving environment, spirituality makes requires of us as spiritual leaders to know the basics, how to identify a problem, to know the resources in our community who to call, and to have the basic training how to handle the situation, to diffuse the situation for the good of the community. Yes, absolutely. It's part of it. Part of our calling.
All right. In what ways is spirituality harmful towards mental health and mental illness?
Well, if we believe it's our job to uplift the community, our job is to uplift the grumpy person. Our job is to uplift the person with the challenges, who have the issues. Our job is to make sure everybody in the community is taken care of. Now, sometimes it means like you have children of 5 kids, and one day I'll spend more time with one than the other. It's what the job requires, what the calling requires, what the moment requires. So our reaction has to be, one day could be with one person, and the next day much more time with another person. So we have to be equipped to handle every congregant, every community member as best as we can. They're coming to us, they have faith in us. And we have responsibility because of that faith to tender and to help them as best as we can. We have an absolute obligation.
Mhm. Thank you for being as open as you are. Let's look into another question. Are mental health professionals aware of spirituality and religion, and should they be aware of it?
Well, everybody, in order to do a proper diagnosis to help a situation, especially we have a multicultural world, which is very important for sensitivity, we have to train ourselves as clergy and as professionals, whatever category we have, to be the best educated in all of these intricacies. If not, we're doing a disservice to our congregants, and we're doing a disservice to the various professions we represent. So it's incumbent upon us to become as proficient as we can. Now, not everybody will be a doctor, psychiatrist, or a psychologist, or a social worker, or a caregiver. We have to know the basic steps to take to diffuse the situation, and the basic steps, as I will go back to it, to give CPR or mental health CPR until the proper professional can diagnose and do a true treatment plan that can help the person be with society, not segregate from society because of the conditions and challenges they face. Our job to make it to enrich ourselves by hiding people is not the solution. By finding a solution to integrate them, to make them feel loved and understood and appreciated. And we have to do that, especially with mental health situations, which is sadly is not a priority many times.
This actually reminds me of a study that I had looked into where this wasn't done in the country. This was done, I believe, in Malaysia, if I'm not mistaken. Could be wrong. But this was a Muslim man that was in a Christian college and was from a small village, was isolated, and found himself deviating from his faith. Now, what ends up happening is a social worker or like a guidance counselor had who has knowledge of Islam, and she was a Christian woman, actually used whatever resources that she had within that was local to the area and used her knowledge of the faith of Islam to actually help this person, kind of not just help him with his anxiety and his depression and isolation, but also helped him with his faith, which I find that was rather ironic, but also kind of shows where the promotion of using spirituality as its equal in psychological intervention may actually work in terms of helping people who are of interfaiths.
That's the key. You have to go the extra mile to be proficient on a level. And that example, the social worker went the extra mile is a caring professional that took it upon themselves to understand the needs of the community. And it's a base of knowledge we all have to have. Thank God we have a diverse community with different religions. And thank God we have different people, whether it's Jewish, Muslim, Christians, all of us together. And we have to learn how to respect each other, the values we have on a private religious basis in order to get the care out there. And we don't have to be the best practitioner in the sense of a full solution. We're specialists who special go to school, have special licenses, who specialize in this. But we have to make the effort as leaders, spiritual leaders in particular, community leaders, in order to make the push of a good understanding to help people hit that level. So all of us have that responsibility if we want to make a difference in the mental health area, which all of us do want to make that difference.
All right. Well, we can follow up with our next question. How has COVID-19 pandemic affected resources within religious spaces?
Oh, COVID. Besides the food lines, even the dollar store announced there's no more $1 anymore in Dollar Tree. It's $1.25 across the country now. It's affected everything. The cost of inflation. Even if you want to pay the product, assuming people can afford, people are struggling financially now more than ever. The food insecurity is great. So even if people can afford it, which very few of us really can, it has complicated the situation, has complicated problems that existed prior to COVID on a higher level. And that is something which is very difficult. Very difficult. And you need a frank conversation how to resolve these issues in a fair, equitable, just manner.
Yeah, from what I've been understanding from those who I know who are part of the clergy and just other faiths, is that many of them have actually underwent their own practices being closed. So it was so them actually having to go through Zoom and other like other digital means. I find very interesting, especially with this, because initially pre-pandemic, you weren't really using Zoom or StreamYard or any of those things in particular that would allow you to connect with however many people before. But I find this whole, phenomenon very interesting.
Well, the Zooms and the technology, unfortunately, COVID was the birthing for Zoom and technology to take off. We think we advanced in this country 50 years of technology because of COVID. But the world can go back to a healthy normal. People can actually interface one-on-one, as we took for granted just 2 years ago. That combined with the technological advances would make the difference. It's good to connect through a Zoom, through a phone call, through a FaceTime, but the interaction of touching someone, holding them, seeing them, looking them in the eye, that warm interaction, looking into each other's hearts is missing right now. And that is something, hopefully, where the world will be cured. So we're able to use Zoom and technology for the benefits it affords us. We also will have the opportunity to return to the old-fashioned in person, the handshake, the warm embrace, that smile, the nice word face-to-face, which is so lacking right now, which hurts so much.
Hopefully, I hope that in due time that we do go back to this, but unfortunately, this has become like our new normal, which is depressing, especially for those who need that contact. We're human beings, so we need that physical contact. Even those who say no, like I don't need anybody touching me, no one holding me, just you stay over there and I stay over here. It's in us. It's innate for us to have that direct connection and interaction.
You hit the issue right on the nail. But I'm always hopeful and optimistic. And I believe in miracles. And I believe, hopefully, with God's help, we'll have a different conversation where things are cured. I'm being optimistic and being hopeful, and I'm praying. Our children need it. Our seniors need it, and we need it. Let's be honest. And the other thing about the whole mental situation, the mental health challenges, as clergy, self-care, burnout. We're working. We as clergy, we work under hard circumstances always, coupled with the COVID reality. Such a reality, there was no theology handbook or code of law or canon laws that could have helped us get through with guidance. It comes from having a warm heart, a strong acumen, and faith that's getting us through this. And you hit it on the nail. You're absolutely correct. That's the main problem.
And so my follow-up question here, even though this is not a question that was given to the panelists, was how have you been dealing with burnout?
Well, first thing I advise my colleagues, make sure you get some exercise in. Even if it means walking around the block in a socially distanced fashion, get some exercise. Go to your backyard if you can. Try to be a little bit more interactive, not to forget about yourself. Meditate. Do some private prayers. Speak to a colleague that you could have a one-on-one conversation who you're comfortable with opening up to. Remember, we're all human beings. And if we're not careful enough to guard our own mental well-being, what good are we for the communities that we serve? So we owe it to ourselves in order to help the community out and our families. That's what it boils down to.
Yes, because I've noticed this even within the mental health profession that there's a mental health shortage that many people don't really know. So with the pandemic and adding on to the layers of people suddenly wanting to seek actual help, and then you add on to the fact that there's already been a shortage on mental health care providers, that there's been higher rates of burnout. And the tragedy of it all is it's kind of like for even within those who are in religious leadership, how do you like is it how who are catching the nurturers who are always busy nurturing? It's like who catches them when they're the ones that's always carrying the burdens. And that's what I've definitely have seen, especially within this past year and a half, are those kind of just falling. Basically, they're sky falling and enduring the fact that they are channeling so much and doing so much and then not having enough for themselves. Rabbi Mendy? Looks like we have technical difficulties.
I'm back. I'm the tech person in the back for those who are watching. Rabbi Mendy, if you can you hear us? No, that's okay. So we are going to attempt to end off today's stream. Thank you for coming to our bonus edition of My Faith, My Mental Health. We had the amazing Rabbi Mendy here, and I hope you guys all have a good night. And thank you, Cheyenne, for being a facilitator and host and stuff like that, as well as bringing our lovely executive director Sophia on. Thank you so much. Don't forget to unmute yourself so they can hear you because you're muted.
This was a wonderful, wonderful conversation, especially the bonus round. I really enjoyed it, and it sets up for continuation of different conversations that we can have with the community. I think this was of benefit to many who have listened, and I can't wait to see the additional comments, and I can't wait for people to continue to share our program with the community. Thank you all, and have a wonderful, wonderful night. And you girls rock.
Oh, and Mendy back on, so we're heading. Oh no, he got up again. It's the technology. It's the technology. Either way, I'm gonna say bye for Rabbi Mendy, and I hope you guys all have a good night. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.